Has Driveclub been worth the wait? I'm Matt Elliott from CVG, and that's the question I'll be putting to Phil Iwankiuk from Official PlayStation Magazine. So Phil, Driveclub slipped back from November 2013 to October 2014. Can you tell us, having played it, was the wait worth it or not?
I think when I went along up to Evolution, I was expecting a grand reveal of some like dramatic new feature, like maybe Morpheus, hoping against hope that it would be like suddenly a Morpheus launch title. Or, you know, that there were like motorbikes or something like that. There isn't really one tangible new element that you can say the delay has birthed, but instead it's been more about the traditional, like extending the polish phase. And in particular, it's been about the social features. So one thing Evolution were quite keen to stress is that however the social integration layer was working in Driveclub in its November 2013 incarnation, it wasn't up to scratch by their own standards. Now it works a lot like the PS4 zone sort of social layer in the XMB, so when you hit down and it shows that all your friends have been watching Netflix in all those social tiles. So Driveclub's main menu works a bit like that now. You've got kind of a big tile that says Drive, which makes sense, and then you've got your options and everything. Below that is an activity feed of all your friends, where you can see whether they've been completing challenges, whether they've joined a different club, all that kind of stuff. When you're in-game as well, there are face-offs, which work a lot like EA's Autolog from the Need for Speed games, right, particularly Most Wanted. So you'll hit a particular sector of a track and say, I like hit a particularly good average speed through a series of corners. When you play that section, if we're friends, you'll see the average speed that I hit and it will challenge you to beat me. So it's very similar to Autolog in that regard, but it's unintrusive, it's good fun, it's a good idea, and it's worth ripping off from EA.
Totally, yeah. I mean, so it feels like it's more like layers of polish rather than any sort of big single change that they've been working on, really.
Not that I've seen, yeah, and it is incredibly polished as well. I mean, I'm pretty gutted that the fly cam that the developers showed us in the dev build isn't going to be in the final game, because you can just kind of zoom right out from the drivable area into this nice, I mean, all the tracks I've seen so far have mountains and lakeside, right? But that's you know, that's not that's neither here nor there really. You can just kind of park the camera up and speed up the dynamic sort of day-night cycle and watch how the lighting affects all these areas, and it's absolutely beautiful. There are certain combinations of lighting that make it almost indistinguishable from reality. And you know, that sounds like hyperbole, but it's really not. In Norway in particular, really snowy, mountainous, sort of snaking few minutes of tarmac at dawn and early morning in the sun. I mean, it looks real. It looks like real life.
That's awesome. This was something we were going to come to later, but we'll skip ahead and talk about it now. A few months ago, there was sort of a few minor concerns about the way it looked, especially compared to something like Forza. Is this sort of allayed all of your fears then, seeing it now?
It's a tricky one. There is so much detail in the environment that you'll never see, and also in the cars that you'll never see. I mean, it's a sort of fanatical approach to game design. Like you get the feeling that each vehicle developer just wants the passenger seat to look exactly right for their own sake. Because you're never really gonna be looking at that passenger seat, but they need everything to be absolutely perfect. I mean, it does look wonderful. I think the strength of it is in the lighting system rather than in the cars themselves, okay, which look as good as anything we've seen on this generation so far, but not a marked step up.
There's a limit to where we can go, presumably, when we get this good.
Yeah, I mean, the cars are all built apparently using the CAD data supplied by the manufacturers, so in terms of their geometry, they are as close as you can get to, you know, I mean, I think they specified each poly count on each vehicle is between 200,000 and 300,000 polys. So until we can get like million polygon cars running around on a track in a game running at 30 frames per second, which they have confirmed, of course it is 30 rather than 60, until we get to that stage, then yeah, the gap between, you know, the discrepancy between one racing game and another running on this generation of hardware is negligible. But I think Driveclub's strength, as I've said, is in the lighting and also the kind of the car interior detail. If you're using the first-person cockpit cam, then you'll really appreciate the hand-stitched leather and the carbon weave on the steering wheels and things like that.
And that's all very good, and it's nice talking about polygons, but how does it actually feel to play as a racing game? Because you're like a massive racing game fan. Did you get a sense of what it's going to be like long-term playing it?
So, at the moment, the last few years, there's this trend for developers and publishers to describe their game as hitting that sweet spot between arcade and simulation racing. I don't know if the driving game has been released since PS2 that hasn't claimed to bridge that gap. I don't think there really is an arcade anymore. I think it's between, the gap is actually between simulations like Project Cars or R Factor 2 and the games that purport to bridge the gap between the two. They're the arcade games. So in that sense, Driveclub is actually an arcade racer. It feels like, well, again, to make a Need for Speed parody, it feels like that kind of meaty Criterion racer. So there is a level of challenge, and you can bin it around a corner if you lose rear traction. If you're trying to drift and you let the rear end just go unchecked, then you will spin. So there is a level of challenge to it, but I don't think you can really make a case that it's a sim under any circumstances. There is wheel support though. I think they've been working with Thrustmaster, so if you've got a Thrustmaster wheel, you should be sitting pretty if you wanted to have, you know, manual gears and everything like that.
Awesome. One final thing, and then we'll finish up. Obviously, the clue is in the title, but it kind of the multiplayer element and the online element relies upon this sort of club mechanic. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
Sure. So clubs are limited to 6 players, which is quite intimate. I thought that there might be like a clan. You know, you might have like 30 people in a club, and you'd be competing in simultaneous events. But yeah, it's 6 players. I took part in a club event. We were sort of lumped in arbitrarily with a bunch of strangers at the event, and instantly that binding element of a club really worked. Like I really cared about. We were called Spin Doctors.
Nice.
I really cared about Spin Doctors after like 2 minutes on the track, and I really wanted us to do well against these other arbitrarily grouped clubs. So it worked for us in that we did a point-to-point race in India with this time of day cycle, like really sped up. So like it started at about midnight, and by turn 2 it was dawn, which was really fun to watch. But yeah, so we all had to compete in this point-to-point, and our average time across all 6 drivers, was worked out, and then that was fed in against other competitors, and we all just had such tremendous motivation to keep trying to improve our time, not to be the guy that was bringing the average down by a couple of seconds.
With only 6 people, suddenly the onus is on you to really pull your weight. Like you can't just slack.
Exactly, yeah. And I wonder how much time people are going to spend in one club. I think it's probably going to depend from gamer to gamer, but there's probably, you could play this like a mercenary footballer like Louis Saha, who's just sort of hopping from club to club, always looking to get to a higher fame level. So the clubs are ranked by fame level. Like there's a traditional level up system, which like gear gates, cars and liveries and things, but really you're competing for fame. So you could just try to make your own, the club that maybe you found at the start of the game, the most famous club around, or you could just shop your skills around and apply to join other clubs, and you can all do that within the social layer.
Sounds awesome. So final verdict, where sort of is your level of excitement?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I think people still have it in their heads that this might be some sort of revolution. This might be, some genre redefining experience. And I think it's just going to be a really capable, really pretty racing game with some quite clever social features, some of which we've seen before, others we haven't.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Phil.
Thank you.
So there you go. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and you can hit subscribe now to see more from Driveclub in the future. Thanks for watching.